So as we move on to the fact that you kind of have to design differently when you're building houses, what are some of the real design needs? What are maybe some of the perceived ones that don't really apply? What needs to change in how you design a home when you're using this type of material?
It is a prefabricated system, so a lot of forethought has to go into it. You don't want to be changing on the fly. This is sort of a real limitation. It doesn't mean that you can't. With our system, it is wood and expanded polystyrene, so in a pinch you can change things on site, but ideally that's not what you want to be doing, and you don't want to be beating things in like was mentioned earlier. They should click together like a puzzle. We try to design them so that they're hard to get wrong. It is like a big ice cream sandwich puzzle what we do, and like any other puzzle, if the piece doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. You got the wrong piece. So with the panels being numbered and labeled, they typically only they only fit one way. And so in terms of it, that is a real design limitation in the sense that you really don't want to be changing things on the fly. In terms of a perceived design limitation, I think when you mention prefab or modular to a lot of people, they kind of have this preconceived notion of a kind of real boxy, it's okay, you can add maybe a little facade here and there and trim it out a bit, but the perception is that you really can't design the house in a way that you might otherwise do with, say,
the nicer aesthetics. And
where you're, a stick-framed house. But that's not true at all. We can design a house. There really are no limitations to what we can do with the panels. So like I mentioned earlier, everything's cut on a CNC machine. And again, we do roof panels, wall panels, roof panels, and we can get into some really, really complex designs. Ideally, we wouldn't. We wouldn't have to. We'd be doing gazillions of boxes, but that's not what people want necessarily. So we do very complicated roof systems, walls. Pretty much anything that you could build stick frame, you can do with panels. Some designs are more suitable to SIP applications than others, granted, but they're really this perceived sort of notion of that a prefabricated or modular building is just going to be like a trailer. Yeah. It's not true. It's really not. It's unlimited.
So if we have builders out here like, okay, great, I know how to design my homes. I have no experience with being able to design something that uses these materials. Can you help?
Absolutely.
So will you can do the designs, or you can refer them to other designers who are familiar with SIP construction?
A little bit of both. We have designers in-house, and our sales team is very experienced. We can get in at the early stages of a project, at the preliminary stages, make suggestions. In terms of wall panels, you can do pretty much whatever you want. If you are doing a roof with panels, then that can, you're eliminating the trusses and you're replacing the trusses with a rafter or a beam type system. So it's kind of, SIP construction to me is more closely associated with post and beam construction. And so there's a little bit of thought to be done in terms of where the support for the panels is going to be, the structural support. The panels are structural, but they don't float, so they have to sit on something. And we look at things like the snow load in the particular area that those panels are going to be built, the thickness of the panels, and how the panels are connected to each other to determine where any rafters or beams may be required. So we can help. We can also refer the customers to designers out there that are familiar with panels and engineers that can help with that. So yeah, we can definitely be a source to get and this is dipping your toe in it here.
Sure.
Call the sales people, ask for some suggestions, and just take it step by step.
other real or perceived limitations that should be brought up in this audience?
I would say it a little stronger than Dave. Save your money. Don't engage your architect to spend any money whatsoever, because undoubtedly it'll be wrong or have to be fixed. So find your solution partner. If it's the factory you're going to buy your SIP solution from, they will have what I call the nuts and bolts of the build. And you don't really need an architect for a residential home, generally speaking. So if you're doing a residential home, go to the factory, use their engineering and their architectural group, their CAD group, draw it out, then hand it to your architect. This is what I want. They're going to design. We usually design in waste thought process, right? Architects don't. They spend money. It's based on how big the project can be, dollar-wise. I know, I own an architectural firm, so I can say that. We want to design in a panel solution with minimum waste in mind. In volumetric, it's the same way. It's about saving materials, so you design to the panels. You can do the post and beam solution. You can do trusses and rafters. You can build this a lot of different ways. So when you have to understand what you're wanting and then work with the local provider that's providing your solution. And we can show you examples in the next round of product that I will show. You would argue all day with me that I didn't build that in a factory. So I look forward to that argument.
Anything you add to that?
You know, a lot of builders pride themselves on their late-stage customization agility.
Well said. Well said.
And there shouldn't be a need for late-stage customization agility. Can you imagine going into the Lexus assembly line going, hey, I want louvers on my hood. Can you put louvers? No, I demand you put louvers. I'm not going to buy it now. I'm going to cancel my contract unless you put louvers in the hood. So Lexus is never going to do that, right? But we as home builders, we pride ourselves on our late-stage customization agility. I think that as you use more and more prefabricated products, we need to discipline ourselves to not, I mean, as a whole industry, we need to stop that. But build baby steps, take baby steps, and that is one of the disciplines that we need.
Okay. Next one kind of comes to you as well. We've talked about some of the logistical hurdles in distance. So what if I don't have someone who does these SIP panels that's nearby where I build? Does that mean I shouldn't even look at it, or how can that be overcome?
Cost-benefit analysis, right? So you need to do your cost-benefit analysis to understand, and I'm sure I still have those old calculations about how far you can be from the plant based on trucking costs before it's no longer feasible to do that. So proximity.
But my lumber has to come from somewhere else, so I'm paying trucking costs one way or the other, aren't I?
Yes, and so that's included in the cost-benefit analysis. So I have lumber here, and it travels this distance, and I have these framers. I have my prefab panels here, and it has to travel this distance. And as builders, we build over here, and then, a year and a half later, it's done, and we build over here, then we build over here. And so the challenge is that we now need that plant to be all over the place, or we have variable costs in logistics in getting the panels to the job site. And you just have to do that cost-benefit analysis to determine when it's no longer feasible, or find solutions to make it more efficient.
Okay. So Dave, you're here as a vendor talking to different builders. Mm-hmm. You mentioned kind of where your two locations are. If you're talking to someone from Rhode Island, is it kind of like, I'd love to help you, but it's just not going to work out for you? Yeah. Or do you feel like you have a solution that can still help those builders on the East Coast?
There are situations where, we have two manufacturing plants. One's in Michigan, one's in British Columbia, just up the road here. The one from British Columbia generally takes care of, pretty much Alaska down to California and a few of the western states. And you can imagine around Michigan, Midwest, but there is a limit. The farther away we get, the less jobs we're picking up, and sometimes, the ratio of the size of the house and the overall cost of the house to shipping can you're not going to send a shed to Colorado from Vancouver, but you might send a 10,000 square foot house. All of a sudden that the efficiencies, or the ratio in terms of the material cost of the trucking aren't as bad when you look at it in those terms. But there's times, I would say, just while we're on this, logistics to hurdles, one thing with prefabricated panels is, sometimes the trucks, they're big and they take up a lot of space. When they arrive on the job site, you've got to be prepared for it. You're going to have a 53-foot trailer pull in, and that, or more, or two, and you've got to be prepared to offload those panels, put them somewhere while you're installing them. The nice thing about the beauty of it is, as you're installing them, that pile of panels, gradually gets down to zero, and you're left with nothing. There's no garbage. I mean, that's one of the real benefits of the prefabricated systems. But at the same time, when the panels do arrive, you really do have to be prepared for those. And in some cases, if you're living in Kansas, that might not be a problem. When you're living in Vancouver or British Columbia, Whistler, and you're building on the side of a mountain, that could be something that has to be considered.
The logistics of how you're going to do
logistics
that. I know Jason and I were looking at some video yesterday where they'll pull up with a trailer that actually has a crane built into it, and it's dropping it right where it needs to go. Anything you want to add to what's been said? I know when we talk about numbers-wise, you're saying, hey, if you're going to build a whole bunch of houses, I'll help build the factory right there where you want to be.
Yeah, that's our U.S. model. But to echo what Dave was saying, it's real simple. I think from the studies I've seen in the factories I've been involved with and the case studies in logistics, you definitely, I'll start on the laydown where we just finished. You've got to have a laydown area, both volumetric and both for panels because of the trucks and the pooling and the loading, but it's a much cleaner site. Excuse me. 2, panels will travel easily 200 to 300 miles in the average market. Volumetric pods will easily transfer about 600 miles in any direction, easily in the market. I could also tell you, though, I'm building projects in Dallas and sending it all the way to Colorado. So it's really about cost. The more expensive your framing and your construction is in a market, the further this stuff can travel. Again, building something in North Carolina and sending it to Colorado is over 1,000 miles. Building something in Dallas and sending it to Edwards and Winter Park's over 1,000 miles. And this is being done right now as we speak. If I were to fly you to Colorado, I would take you to sites where all their housing is coming out of state. The factory that I built there for a client can't even keep up with the demand. So there's got to be more factories. There's got to be more solutions. We can't do it without you guys attending these classes, asking questions, and taking risk and getting involved.
And this is where I think that there's also an incentive for collaboration in markets, that if you're not big enough to justify this, getting more in your market that want to do this, you can all be ordering from the same factory potentially, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.